Welcome, welcome. So here we are on the NAB show floor, Las Vegas 2024, for a live Alan Smithee podcast right off the floor. I'm here with Mr. Michael Kamas. Our partner in crime, Katie Henson, is not here this year. Katie, we miss you. We know you're doing something much more fun than being here at NAB, so I hope you're enjoying yourself, but we'll see you back here next year.
Although that being said, I had a tech friend stop me over at the Renaissance, and they have this really, I'm not going to say who it is, but they have this really cool tech, and I said, you know who would love this? Katie Henson. And the guy looked me straight in the face. He goes, oh yeah, she came by yesterday. No.
Wait, I'm like,
no,
what?
She
No,
didn't.
she's not here.
No, she didn't.
Guy to sell me products.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I think as always happens at NAB, the first thing we want to talk about is like what cool things have you seen, Michael?
Mm-hmm. Oh, we're just going to lead off with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got something better?
I thought we'd talk about the show in general.
Oh, that's actually a bit more. Is that controversial? Is it? Yeah. Tell me what you had an interesting thought about the show in general a minute ago.
The show was interesting. Attendance is down. NAB, I'm sure, will say we've had X amount of registered attendees, but registered and people who actually attend are a little bit different.
Let me answer. How do you know attendance is down if they have not announced attendance yet, or have they announced?
It's, when you watch a film and the editing is bad?
Yes.
You just know.
Yes.
That's how I know.
Okay.
There wasn't the glut of people getting in on the first day, right? You could walk through the Black Magic booth easily, which is usually very tough on the first day.
Okay.
There aren't a lot of lines, except for coffee. The booths aren't as packed. You can just tell attendance is down.
Yeah, that's an interesting one because on Sunday I'm doing a lot of teaching in post-production world upstairs of South Hall, so I'm not milling the floor very much. But one thing in the back corner of South Hall Upper is the post-production corner. It's a hands-on booth with probably about, 30 laptops, and we do presentations there. But it's all the way in the back corner. The first day we got there, we kind of walked around. We're like, this is going to get like no drive-by traffic. No one's going to be there. But yet every session has been packed, and I think that's because when you have something with a schedule that's announced, people will still seek that kind of stuff out at NAB, especially if it's free. So that's great, but at the same time, if it doesn't feel as crowded, you have to wonder, like, why is that? Is it the whole, you don't need conventions anymore, or is it people don't want to spend the money? Like, I don't know.
There's a few other telltale signs. First off is if you've been to NAB and you've gone to South Hall Lower, you know that there was a staircase. So there's the first staircase when you first get there, and then halfway back there's another staircase. That's not there anymore. And is that because it's been remodeled, or because there wasn't enough booths sold to occupy that, right? The other telltale sign is when you go to a convention and the aisles that you walk are wide, that's indicative of they don't have enough booths, so they make the aisles wide to keep the appearance that the halls are packed.
Tricky.
If you go to like West Hall, it almost feels like there's a football field in between each booth. There's just all this space.
Wow. Well, you know what? NAB, they do announce the attendance every year. So, that comes out pretty quickly, I think, after the show.
The thing we should counter that with is next year, when the Super Bowl's aired, let's say 5 million people drop off. The viewership is down 5 million. It's still the Super Bowl. And that NAB is still the Super Bowl. It's one of the two reboots every year in the tech industry. So it's still the place to be, even if attendance is down.
Yeah, I don't think NAB is going anywhere, so
no.
we'll kind of play it out and see what happens, and probably maybe talk a little bit about this on our next audio podcast after the show, because I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it. But getting back to that original question, that's always the NAB question, what cool stuff have you seen? Or what crap have you seen?
Well,
because there's both here, cool stuff and crap.
This goes a little bit to what we talked about on the last episode, which is the innovation, and then there's iteration, right? So every year you're going to have something that's faster, cheaper, etc. So there's always the iterative, hey, this is new. New as in here's a new feature to an existing product. The big thing obviously is AI.
Yep.
And what I find very interesting is you have folks that say we have AI tools, and it basically means you sign up for ChatGPT, OpenAI, ChatGPT, and then put in your API key, and now we have AI. So it's very kind of lowest level barrier of entry, MVP, minimum viable product. And then you get companies like Periphery, which is doing the agent route. And for those who aren't familiar with the AI agent route, when you work with ChatGPT, for example, that's one big large language model. Everything is in has been all your data, or all the data has been trained on that LLM, but that's expensive to run. You can't run it locally. When you start dealing with agents, you get specially tailored models to do specially tailored jobs. And so by running the agent route, you can swap in and out this model for that model for whatever new model comes out in 2 weeks, and then have it orchestrate other agents, other AI agents, to do these things. So I greatly appreciate the companies who have said, we're leaning into that, and we're allowing you to use models you download from the internet to do these specialty tasks to carry out your workflow needs without saying, here, just use ChatGPT. And that also, of course, goes to the ethical and moral implications of using models.
Big questions there.
That are in the cloud, that are censored. So I really enjoy that, and Periphery is doing a great job with that. Their product isn't shipping yet. A lot of it is waving the hands, but if you take a deeper look, you can see that the building blocks are there to do just that.
Well, let me ask you a question you may be able to answer that I don't quite understand. AI is all over the place, and you can walk around NAB and you see various shared storage vendors that now have some kind of AI integration.
Right.
And you might see a software company that has added AI to their tools. I may see 9 shared storage companies and 12 software vendors that have added AI. What's 9 plus 12? That's 31, or is that 21?
It's 21.
Whatever that is.
We're in Vegas. You got to know how to get to 21, man.
That's why I don't gamble. But if they're using AI, they haven't written 21 unique AI implementations per thing.
No.
How many worlds up there in the cloud are there for AI that companies like that can sort of tap into, buy into, or integrate into their product?
There's obviously the top ones, right? You're dealing with the OpenAI ChatGPT. You're dealing with Leonardo. You're dealing with Gemini, Gemini Pro. You're dealing with Meta's models. But the ones that again I'm really interested in are the ones you get from GitHub, right, or Hugging Face, which are open source models
that anybody could work with.
Anybody can work with, and the data that it's trained on is public information. So you can see what's been fed, and for the most part, they're uncensored. They're even labeled uncensored. So it's not that I want to know how to build a bomb. I don't want to be told you can't know how to build a bomb, right? And then, of course,
it always comes back to building a bomb.
It always comes back to building a bomb. I don't believe in that kind of censorship. And these open source models, like I said, they actively tell you what they were trained on. And I appreciate that kind of transparency.
Yeah. So that's a place where if you were a customer here at NAB shopping for some kind of shared storage, you get a value add these days with AI that you wouldn't have had last year in a sense, because AI wasn't as big last year. But if you're that customer shopping, is that something you have to then consider? Okay, wait a minute, they're offering an AI with shared storage in their software, their search product. Do you have to ask, okay, shared storage company, where are you getting your data from? What's it trained on? What kind of questions does the customer have to ask to be able to make an informed decision of what they're buying?
That's a great question. I don't think you're going to see many storage companies saying we're going to develop AI in-house. It's not their jam, right? Just for the same reason that shared storage manufacturers normally don't make their own drives, right? Because that's not where their specialty is. Their specialty is the software layer on top of it. So, do you want to have AI in your storage? Great. Normally you're plugging into someone else's AI, but that brings up a good question, because most AI is running in the cloud. Mm-hmm. A lot of shared storage is on premises, and that's proprietary information. You don't want to expose that to the internet, right? Do you also want to deal with having to upload that and have it processed? That's compute time, et cetera, and that's expensive. So, yes, there are shared storage manufacturers that are saying, here, plug in your ChatGPT API key, but I don't think we're going to see many shared storage manufacturers developing themselves. The questions you should be asking are, if you're plugging into AI, what are the ramifications of any IP that you have, right? Is the data that's being analyzed something that the cloud is then going to use as training fodder? And the real unfortunate thing is when you use a third-party tool like AI, let's say you're a storage company and you use a third-party AI, it's not your responsibility. You wipe your hands of it because that's
interesting.
That's the third party.
Yeah.
That's we're not responsible for that.
So, I think, as always, all these AI ethical questions are going to be something that's not answered at this NAB, and it'll continue to go on and on. I mean, speaking of AI, we saw Adobe make an announcement on Monday of the show, I think, that generative AI coming to Adobe Premiere Pro, and as a craft editor, that's very close to my heart because I use Premiere all the time, where you can do object removal, you can have generative extend, where you literally trim a clip out, and if the demo comes to pass, then it will generate a new clip, for an extra 5 seconds of footage on that clip.
No more footage limitations for transitions.
I mean, that's just a few frames,
Right,
but I'm imagining like an extra 6 seconds. Like that's going to be huge. You're not typing in a prompt. You're just letting the AI say, "Oh, I see what you just had. I'm going to make you new." And that's pretty amazing.
And what I think another key to that is during the demo, they actively showed that it's not just Adobe's AI. It's not just Firefly. You can use Pika.
Yep.
You could use. They may have mentioned Sora. I'm not sure, but it was.
They did. I think it was OpenAI. It was Pika, and there was.
Was it Sora?
Well, isn't Sora?
Or Leonardo. Anyway, the point is that Adobe's saying, look, you don't have to use our model.
Yeah.
You can use another model that may be a specialty, or that may, since there's new models coming out every week, it's an extensible architecture where you can plug in other models. And
Customer
I think that's
choice.
Fantastic. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's a big deal. So, I think a parallel to that almost is I saw Avid had announced AI tools,
Ada.
AI something called Ada. Now, I think this is a sort of a difference between the two companies. I watched the Adobe video and had a pretty clear-cut idea of what they're going to try to implement. But when I looked at Avid's Ada AI announcement and even went by the booth, I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be.
There's always.
Do you have any idea?
I think it's almost comparing apples to oranges, and I'm not an apologist for any technology, but I think the thing you have to look at is Adobe has their hands in a lot of different verticals, a lot of different businesses. They also have a stock footage library. When you deal with Avid is kind of squarely focused in media and entertainment for the most part. They don't have their fingers in a lot of other pies. They don't have a repository of stock footage and other business units to leverage. So I think trying to compare them is a little bit difficult. Yeah. But Avid has always been very conservative in that respect anyway, right? They want to make sure it works because and no shade to Adobe, but you tend to find in the most pressure-sensitive post-production, media creation scenarios, film, television, etc., that's where you have Avid. And so for Avid to slowly roll out things, to make sure it just works for a majority of the use cases, that makes sense. But you are right, since they no longer use phrase find and script sync, which was based off of another company's technology, since they no longer
and that's
license
AI based now.
That's AI based, and by all accounts, it's not quite up to. It's kind of the Final Cut 10 to Final Cut 7. Right?
Ooh.
Right? So it's good,
Ow.
but it's not as good as the previous iteration, the Final Cut 7,
Yeah.
the former phrase find and script sync.
I think, we mentioned Adobe and we mentioned Avid. I think we should probably now mention Blackmagic in this equation because they also have, editing AI products in DaVinci Resolve, but of course they have so much more with their cameras, their switchers, their infrastructure thing. And it's kind of funny, like going to the three booths, you go to the Avid booth, I see a lot of, older guys in sports coats, milling around doing their thing.
Did you just allude to the fact that I'm a little older guy in a sport coat?
Yes, but you have on a cool T-shirt, not a button-up underneath it.
Oh, well, okay.
You go down to the Adobe booth, you see like people with colored hair and lots of young people, and lots of others as well. But then you go over to the Blackmagic booth, and it's kind of like a mix of everything. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of funny, like to see those three companies, how they work. But Blackmagic also having the hardware and the cameras. It is a sort of a different kind of thing. Speaking of hardware and cameras, I'm not a camera guy, but Blackmagic, did I see is there a 17K camera Blackmagic has over there that potentially
I think
is a
for
future
VFX,
product?
it's going to melt the processors of people who are doing VFX, but for coming up with plates and such for VFX, also I think that's going to be fantastic, having that type of resolution. I also really liked the Pixis, which is their new camera.
Oh yeah, yep. A bit more like downstream and affordable.
Well, everyone's been clamoring. The other camera manufacturers are coming up with box cameras, right? That are kind of modular, you just add stuff on. And so Blackmagic did that. They took the guts of the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and then put it in this form factor that you then can outfit as a rig, and that looks amazing. I'm a big fan of that. I may actually I shoot my series with a Blackmagic Pocket or
That would be the
Cinema camera.
5 Things podcast.
5 Things.
Yep, Google 5 Things podcast.
And we've been wanting to upgrade. And so instead of getting the Pocket 6K, I may end up getting a Pixis and then really outfitting it with what I need.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Blackmagic and cameras, but as we sit here recording this live Alan Smithee podcast, I look out and I see Canon, I see Panasonic, I see Sony's right over there. I feel like Blackmagic got a lot of the press with a lot of their camera announcements, but there are all the other big camera manufacturers are here. I don't know if anybody has a brand new camera because I don't keep up in that space, but like Sony has I think it's the Burano, which is like a really important camera now that a lot of people are really loving. Going back to coming to NAB and how many people are here, again, this is the place where you can come and put your hands on the camera that you may not be able to do otherwise.
Right. I mean, you can certainly read reviews, right? Pro Video Coalition is certainly going to have reviews of this stuff, but especially if you're a shooter, you want to get your hands on it. You want to see what the ergonomics are, etc. Yeah. Speaking of, as a tangent, this NAB is the 10-year anniversary of
the AJA Scion.
The AJA Scion.
I only know that because you mentioned that earlier on Twitter.
So any of you folks out there remember the Scion? It was a good concept that just didn't work in the execution, but something to look at the Wayback Machine and check out the AJA Scion.
Yeah, the young people who don't know what that is and are very familiar with Blackmagic's cameras and all that they've done, Google AJA Scion, C-I-O-N, and take a little bit of a trip down memory lane. It's a very interesting interesting story there. Speaking of, is there any other stuff you saw that's been jumped out at you?
Yeah, and I'm not paid by them, but LucidLink obviously is a fantastic technology, and during the pandemic, LucidLink kind of influenced indirectly that you can work remotely, and here are ways you can work remotely. And so Facilis, which is a shared storage company, been around for quite a while, fantastic stuff. Engineers over there are fantastic. It seems to me they kind of borrowed from that concept of, well, how can people who have a Facilis work with the content sitting on the Facilis remotely? So Facilis has something called I think a WAN link client, which is a software that runs on a remote machine, and it can now directly talk to Facilis remotely. And like LucidLink, it can pull the media and cache it locally on your local drive.
Oh, that's cool.
But also encrypt it a lot like what LucidLink does, so you can't rip off the footage. But it allows you to kind of pin like you would in LucidLink, right, and also cache that content locally, so you can edit remotely without having to use the cloud, because it goes directly from the client to the storage. So that's a really interesting feature. Facilis normally has a lot of iterative features, but this is one that I think is really, pardon the pun, transformational, at least for that type of technology.
Nice. And speaking of LucidLink, I was over at the Hedge booth talking to my friends over there. I've known for years. They've have a lot of great products. That company's really growing. I was looking at the new Post Lab, which will be sort of totally rethinking of their old collaborative editing tool called Post Lab, where editors can have their Premiere project or their Final Cut library shared between editors, where Post Lab will manage the project, let you make notes on the project, and allow people to send the project back and forth and never have to relink their media. Even when they have different file paths, which is really, really cool.
That was impressive.
You link it once, and it remembers where it is after that. You can also put text documents in and collaborate that way. But next to the Hedge booth, there's just a small, tiny booth, a guided table called A-Move, and they have a cool thing where they are allowing you to sort of link your Dropbox, your Google Drive, your Amazon S3 buckets, and almost drag and drop between those cloud services using this layer of technology that they
federated storage.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it's all accessible from one location.
And it's really, really cool, because you think about all the different cloud things that one might use, something to help manage that, at least from my understanding, could be neat. But later in the year, they're looking to move to something that's similar to what LucidLink is doing, where it's kind of like an on-demand block thing. Like when I need that piece of the file, then I'll get that and not have to download or sync everything. Mm-hmm. So, and that's just a very small company that has a very, it's just a round table and someone there with their laptop. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you sometimes find at NAB, which is nice amongst all the giant booths. But since I've been on the show floor and I've been teaching, that's about the only cool thing I've seen.
Let's see, what else was there? Storage DNA Fabric. They've obviously been doing LTO for many, many years, but they also have this kind of federated storage methodology where it enables you to look at content that's sitting on different platforms and then determine, if you have duplicates. Can we move this from one location to another? So that's kind of cool for that same thing you're mentioning, but the fact that it also has LTO integration where it can then restore from tape kind of brings all of that together. So that's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. I think, one thing, if you're sort of new to NAB, and we often talk about, is finding these small booths. Even a smaller NAB, there is still a lot of ground to travel. There's a lot of surface area to these halls to walk through. And, I think that, even 3 or 4 days in, a lot of these people, this is their only chance, a lot of these smaller companies, to connect with, a lot of human beings over a few days. And, I still encourage people to try to seek out and find and talk to some of these smaller booths. They don't have the flash of, the giant Atomos booth or whatever, but you can do both. You can see those great Atomos products, but also find these tiny little things as well, and that's part of the charm of the thing.
It also gives you the opportunity to actively interface with the developers, right? A lot of the good booths at each demo station will have a piece of paper, and if you give them a recommendation on a feature or something you'd like or a bug, they'll write it down. Whereas if you send it via a web form or an email, it may get shuttled to the wrong person, it may never reach the development team, it may be prioritized out of being important. So that's great. In fact, Blackmagic has something really cool, which is not huge in the whole scope of things, but they have a dedicated booth at South Hall Upper for developer support. So if you code against Blackmagic's APIs for any of their products, there's a booth with engineers there that you can talk to. I mean, that's to me how you build a developer community, because you you offer these resources, and I think a lot of companies would do well to do something like that. You know what? The one tech I haven't seen, I haven't mentioned it to anyone because I didn't want to influence anything. You've used Compressor, right? Apple Compressor.
I have.
One of the great things you used to be able to do is drag a file onto there and it would create a preset. Right? So, and that's not something that's done by a lot of other transcoding solutions. But what I expected to see is you would get a delivery spec from CBS, ABC, NBC, and with AI, can I just give you those specs and you create a preset? I have not seen that, and I expected that to be kind of low-hanging fruit, because that's just basic deliverables. Wrapper, codec, data rate. I mean, that's not an esoteric concept.
Yeah, I mean that's actually pretty brilliant, because different networks, different delivery destinations has different delivery specs, and hopefully you always get a delivery spec from the thing you're delivering to. But I think about something like Adobe Media Encoder, and you can make all the presets you want, but it takes work. You got to dig in. There's a bit of skill involved to make a preset in any of these tools. But the idea that you could just type in what these specs are and get that preset, that's a brilliant one right there. So
well, thank you. Now, you and I both know that there are places that have antiquated specifications, or they use a big M when they should use a small m, megabits and megabytes. Yes. But by and large, the deliverable specs have been ironed out at this point, and I don't understand, especially since presets are usually XML. I mean, it's not like a sophisticated data. Why can't I just put that into ChatGPT and say, give me an XML preset, right, and then import that into one of your transcoders? It just seems like a no-brainer to me, but
Yeah, well, perhaps you were the first person to think of it, because there's got to be somebody who thinks of it first and perhaps implements it. So next year we'll be at Michael's booth, which will be the
five things.
The
five things booth
preset creator.
And I'm just going to have a whiteboard with all the ideas I had, but never did anything about them.
So he'll be looking for investment if that's the case, and investment would be a good thing. I think let's wrap this up and ask about. Often at NAB, like there's one giant big thing, like, oh, this is the year of 4K, this is the year of, whatever, HDR. I mean, I think we all thought this is the year of AI, but kind of walking around, I don't know, is it the year of AI at NAB? I think we all thought that was going to be it, and while it's here, I don't know if it's overwhelmingly here.
there's kind of a Silicon Valley ethos, so move fast, break things, right? And I think that's how you kind of have to be with AI right now, because it's changing so quickly. And so the AI on the show floor, I see a lot of companies that aren't sure, and they dip their toe in the water. Like they say, well, you put in your OpenAI ChatGPT API key. Hey, we have AI tools now. No, you really don't. You're shifting the AI to someone else and putting your label on it. It's the companies that are saying we're all in, like Periphery, right? That are doing that. I think next year we're finally going to see people who have said yes, we're all in, or folks that say nope, we're just going to third party it, and we'll start to see purpose-built models for the exact work that the companies that we see here at NAB are doing, and not just here's a big LLM and just use that.
Well, as always, when we wrap up any NAB discussion, we always say well, we'll see what next NAB holds, and we'll also sort of push forward to IBC, which is in September. I think?
Yes.
Yeah. Because often, there's the whole thing like announce at NAB, ship at IBC. So often things get sort of followed up on at IBC. And there's always some new stuff at IBC as well. But, we'll sort of continue to push forward until September. And then we'll probably come back here again next year. And, perhaps AI I'm sure will be more developed. And there will be a lot more, perhaps more specific AI stuff, but maybe just more AI in general. So, I don't have any poignant last thoughts for this, but I think we're going to continue to wander around and meet people and see what we see.
It's great to see you in person. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time. We've seen each other quite a bit, but it's been many months, I think, since I've seen you. Yeah. So it's good to see you in person. Katie, we wish you were here.
We do wish you were here.
Even though someone claims you were here.
Well, that person doesn't know what they're talking about, so forget those people. So Katie, we do miss you. We'll all be back together chatting virtually soon, and we'll have a little bit of more NAB pontification probably after that. But until then, thanks for joining us on this live, actually in person, Alan Smithee podcast. And until the next one, we'll see you then.